Welcome to Love Connection, where old-fashioned romance meets modern-day technology.
I have been a subscriber to GSN for the better part of 12 and a half years, and during that time, there have been a lot of really good shows that have been on the network, both classic and new, and a lot of really bad shows that have been on the network. I've survived the how much is enoughs. I've survived the love triangles. I've survived the improvaganzas, the Carney Wilson unstapleds, the hidden agendas, the instant recalls. You name it, I've been there through a lot of their ups and downs. Tonight, they debuted their newest biblical-themed show, It Takes a Church, right after their highly successful American Bible Challenge. Now, listening to the premise of the show before it debuted and looking at the promos, I had my doubts about whether or not this show would be worth watching. Because, number one, I'm not a big fan of dating shows. It's just not something I get really interested in. I'm not a big fan of Newlywed Game, Love Connection, although it's okay. I don't really post that much on my Fun and Games channel. So that was a strike against it for me. And it just felt like the premise of the show didn't sound very wholesome or worthwhile to me. But nonetheless, I was willing to give it a chance tonight, and I even invited my girlfriend to join me and watch it with me via Skype. And I must say that after watching that hour, the show isn't as bad as I thought it was. Nope. It is much worse than what I thought it was. It Takes a Church has got a rank as perhaps the worst, if not among the worst shows that GSN has ever put on their network, and that covers a lot of ground. Basically, the premise seems simple enough. One congregationalist, or member of the congregation, is set up on a date. Sounds simple, doesn't it? Well, within the first 5 to 6 minutes of the show, it all goes straight to figurative hell. As we find out that it's a bunch of members of the congregation, including the pastor, who have a say in picking the men, in this case, who are going to go on the date with the girl in this episode. I have no problem with that if this was not set in a church. I mean, seriously, how the hell, no pun intended, how did this fly with anybody in any kind of sane-minded church? I'm not a devout religious person. I don't go to church as much as I should. But even I can say, what church would sign off on this? What church says, okay, we have a great idea. We're going to have a nationally run cable network come into our church, and they're going to help members get on dates. It blows my mind. But that's merely the beginning of where this train wreck is taking us. Because from there, it is one big yak fest. And I'm not making that up. Almost the entire episode pretty much takes up just talk. From the dater to the prospective bachelors to the women who are helping the bachelors hook up with the girl. Yeah, that's really wholesome and friendly in a church. Have the women basically fight over who's going to get their guy to be with this girl. Yeah, it just warms the cockles of my heart. So yeah, after our first segment, in which approximately 98% of the audience decided to leave this tripe and go to the NBA Finals, we get to see our 4 prospective bachelors take part in a meet and greet, basically, with their dater, with one person being eliminated from the show. That's as close as you get to a game show in this wreck. I mean, wow. And it really wasn't any physical challenge or gameplay involved. It was just seeing which one of these guys could sweet talk her the most. And frankly, the key word to this show is boring. Capital B-O-R-I-N-G, boring. The conversations were boring. The setups were boring. It boggles the mind. So after you get past all the boring talk, the 3 guys who were picked by the congregation and the 4th guy who was a pastor's pick, yeah, we gotta have the head man get the final say, are grouped together, and they decide which guy is eliminated. So then we move on to our second challenge, which in this episode was seeing how the guys could communicate with the girl to get it through an obstacle course blindfolded. And by obstacles, I mean the dreaded balloons and balls or whatever they were, and drinking cups with water. Boy, really weighed up the ante, GSN. I mean, you had Minute to Win It do stunts that at least involve some physicality, and you try to inject that into this show, and it just looks like something a 5-year-old would scoff at. So if you're still managing to stick around, the dater then decides who to eliminate among the final 3, and then the 2 remaining bachelors go ahead and take our dater out on a dream date of their choice to try and convince her that they are indeed the real deal. And what did one of those dream dates go on? Not some romantic candlelight dinner or something that you would love to do if you were looking for a date. No, we're going to go bowling. Because if there's anything that says, that's my soulmate, it's knocking down some strikes. After our 2 daters have wooed our prospective datee, they come back to the church for the final grand reveal, where the dater and her family then go out to outside the church and bring in the guy that was lucky enough to win this contest of stupidity. And the other 3 get a year of Christian Mingle online dating. In case you haven't noticed, Christian Mingle basically created this show as a 1-hour commercial for them, although they weren't advertising too heavily. Excuse me. They were advertised pretty prominently in this show, and it's pretty clear this was their baby. And if this is really what the best they can do with their big-time clientele, I am glad I'm not a member of Christian Mingle. What else is wrong with this show? Well, have I mentioned the host? Well, Natalie Grant does nothing here. She comes on at the beginning of the show, sings a god-awful song, so bad that even my dad can sing better than that. And then for the rest of the show, basically it's little more than a glorified conduit. Basically, she does her job, she advances the show along when she's needed, but really you could do that off-screen and it would be about as effective as she was here, and you'd have a lot less money to pay for a voiceover guy, so she's pretty much useless in the role she's got. And for a show that's basically called It Takes the Church, other than the early part of the show where the congregation's involved, it's really just a select few of the church who get involved in making the decisions, pitching their people, and deciding which ones are good for her and which ones are bad for her. So it should basically be called It Takes Part of a Church. And was there anything positive that I could derive from this show? Well, I guess the commercials were okay, other than the Christian Mingle ones. They didn't bother me as much. There was a commercial for Bible Challenge before this. I'd much rather watch that. Yeah. In case you haven't noticed, this show is 100% unadulterated trash. Probably the worst show I have seen, at least in the last few years. I endured Love Triangle, and I thought that was better than this trash. Family Trade, where they had pigs eating bacon and sausage, was better than this trash. And that is setting the bar extremely low. This is an obvious cash grab by GSN to take advantage of the audience they created with the Bible Challenge, which is starting to see its ratings decline because they were too stupid to put it on in the last 14 months, or at least well before May. Now its audience is suffering, and then that audience that's left has to suffer watching this show, which completely humiliates the Christian faith. Bottom line, this show should never have made it to air. If the rumors are true that there were a lot of congregations who said no to this, then bravo to them, because if this is the way that the rest of this tripe is going to continue for the next, 6-8 weeks, then God help us all, no pun intended. Do not watch this show under any circumstances. Don't watch it to win a bet. Don't watch it to think that it's good, wholesome fun, because it's not. Just turn on anything else. I'll sum it up like this. When I saw Steve Harvey's Family Feud come on, I was relieved. And when you think about that, and the 60 some odd times that's on a week, that is the ultimate indictment. Avoid this show. I cannot emphasize it enough. Get it off my frickin' screen.